Welcome to another edition of Boxing Info. I'm your host, The Islander, and this is the results as well as preview show for week ending June the 14th. In any event, let's just backtrack a little bit. June 5th in Miami, Carlos Molina scored an upset decision with Danny Perez. Again, this was one of those fights where Molina was a decided underdog and came in and scored a, not a monster upset, but a mild upset in any event, and he will continue on his winning ways. I didn't think that greatly of the fight itself, but that was that. And then last week in San Jose, in a kind of interesting fight, Efren Hinojosa took the fight on 10 days notice with Robert Ghost Guerrero, in which I remember I reported Johnny Edwards was originally supposed to fight him. He pulled out with a bad back, I believe. I don't know if something was wrong with him. And Guerrero basically outworked Hinojosa, and again he got butted, and this time he got cut around his left eye. And Guerrero, redeemed himself for his last fight back in March, in which they went to made a technical draw and stopped Hinojosa after the 8th round, where he was badly out of the fight. And that moved us to the results, and there's been a lot of static going on about this, as I've been fielding a lot of comments and this and that about Cotto Clottey, even before the fight and now after the fight. June 13th in Madison Square Garden, doubleheader, which of course HBO preempted the Ivan Calderon Rodel Mayol fight in favor of Dark Knight, which they've shown about 500 times since then, being that today's Wednesday. And those two fought to a technical draw, in which it was a very lively fight, as I watched on YouTube later on. They butted heads several times, and the gash on top of Calderon's head was just too deep and too serious to let him continue. They went to the scorecards, and that fight ended in a technical decision in the 6th round. One judge had the fight scored 58-56 for Calderon, one had 58-56 for Mayol, and the other one had 57-57. As I was watching it again, grainy through the internet, I don't know if I can really say one guy had the upper edge on the other one, although it looked like Calderon was doing a little bit more to me, at least in a neat sort of way, as opposed to, a little bit of the wildness from Mayol early on. Alright, that brought us to the main event, Miguel Cotto against Joshua Clottey. And as I learned that night, Clottey gave up the IBF title to fight Cotto, which, one of these days I'll put together an organization where what will happen is one person will go and unify all the titles in the division, the ones that mean something, the 4 big ones, the WBC, WBA, IBF, and WBO. And at that point in time, this new organization will take the rankings from each of the 4 divisions, and what they'll do is they'll put them in a computer-generated spreadsheet or something and come up with your aggregate rating to get a #1 contender through through 25, 30, whatever. The person who has all 4 of those titles now has the ring belt, and they are elevated to fight 15-round fights. All those belts mean nothing after that, and that is the true champion. They could have IBF fights in that division, they could have WBA, WBC, who gives a crap? The person that has that belt and is fighting 15-round fights against the contenders that are basically blended together with their aggregate rating from averaging them out amongst the 4 organizations, they'll fight them. And the contenders will fight each other to try to get a shot at this guy who's the king of the mountain. That's just my little sidebar, so to speak. Alright, moving right along. Cotto's defending champion. Clottey gave up the IBF title that he just won from Judo last year to take this fight. Let me start off by just saying this. We all know how the fight went. Clottey was winning the 1st round, got knocked down by a hard up jab when he was leaping in the air, and was more embarrassed than hurt. And then Clottey started to assert himself before he went to, basically bear hug Cotto to get himself out of the corner, and slipped right over the top of Cotto's head and went face down in the corner and hurt his knee. And Cotto started coming on, and Cotto got tired, and of course the headbutt in the 3rd round that opened up the huge nasty Mark Azzurro cut on Cotto's eye, above Cotto's eye, which I'm going to say his corner did a pretty good job of stopping the bleeding. I think that cut started bleeding because he kept pawing at it. I don't know why they didn't tell him, don't touch it. It was fine. He was getting hit on it, and it wasn't bleeding in the beginning of each round. He kept pawing at it and made it stop bleeding. But, the decision itself, I thought that Clottey took the last 3 rounds off for the most part. And we get into some of the nuances of the scoring. First of all, the first round, again, this is where I take my stance with the first Pacquiao-Marquez fight. Where if a guy's winning a round and gets knocked down, it's not automatically a 10-8 round. I mean, 10-9 for Cotto because he scored the knockdown, I'll live with. And if you're asking me how I scored the fight, I ended up scoring the fight 115-113 for Cotto. This is based on 1 round, basically, or 1 round from being a draw, and that's the 10th round, because in the 10th round of the fight, the CompuBox, out of some miracle, had Cotto only landing 7 punches in the round. Keep in mind, it's at the end of this round that Emmanuel Stewart comes out of his seat when Cotto catches Clottey with a vicious left hook, left uppercut, and he does it twice at the end of the round. So that's 2 punches I know he landed, plus a myriad of jabs through Clottey's guard throughout the middle of that round. I'm not saying he landed more punches than Clottey, because I don't think he did, but I'm thinking the more meaningful punches and carrying the round, he did enough to win that round, in my opinion. I was locked in step with Harold Lederman for a while going forward, and I agree with him with, like, I don't think it was like the 7th, 8th, 9th rounds being swept by Clottey, but the 10th, 11th, and 12th, I thought that Cotto had done enough to win those 3 rounds, coupled with the first, I think the 3rd, and there was some other round in there or whatnot that I got into 7. I didn't do it I was doing it in my mind. And I keep up with what Dan Raphael's got it like 8 rounds to 4 with an extra point for a knockdown, just like one of the judges. I couldn't see that. Stretching it, I'm stretching it to score it 7 rounds to 5. And personally, I think it could have been scored 7 rounds to 5 for Clottey, depending upon what you were looking for. Was it a bad decision? No. I think the right guy probably got the decision. Was I underestimating Clottey? Yes. I think he's got some good skills. I don't think he's one of the elite pound-for-pound fighters in the world like everybody's making him out to be. And the other thing, too, is if the cut doesn't happen to Cotto, I personally think he wins this fight even wider than he did. I think it was too wide on the scorecards, but in my estimation, he wins it better than, 6 rounds to 6 with a knockdown or 7 rounds to 5, in my estimation, if the cut doesn't occur. And that's just it. Looking forward, from what I understand, there are heavy negotiations going forward for a fight between Cotto and Pacquiao in November 14th at the MGM Grand. I don't think it's signed yet, and they're waiting for everything else to shake out, but it's going to be interesting. And I really think that Cotto needs to tighten up his defense quite a bit, because he got hit in this fight like there's no tomorrow. Now, as far as the power thing goes, who knows what Clottey weighed when he came into the fight? He could have been 165, 170 pounds. Who knows? But they'll both be in better fights, in the future. At least one more for Cotto, anyway. All right, this coming Friday, ESPN 2 from Laredo, Texas. Fernando Beltran Jr. taking on Montemeza Clay, if I've said that right. Toss-up fight. I think maybe the edge will go to Beltran, but it could go either way. I think. A good fight amongst 2 up-and-comers. I'll lean with Beltran, but I wouldn't be surprised if Clay wins the fight. And that's all I'll say about that. Same night on the Versus Network in Montreal. This is going to be really interesting. This is going to have my attention. Adrian Diaconu defending the 175-pound WBC belt he took vacant when Chad Dawson refused to go to Romania to fight him. He's fighting Jean Pascal, and that is going to be interesting. My knee-jerk reaction after seeing their recent fights is I would give the edge to Pascal, but I don't know how he's going to adjust to this higher weight. I mean, I don't think he was that big of a puncher at 168, and at 175 Diaconu is very strong, but skill-wise I think I might give the edge to Pascal, but my gut is telling me Pascal's going to win the fight. I don't know about you. If he can perform like he did against Carl Froch, I think that he would win the fight. And if Diaconu performs like he did against Eddie, what's his name, the guy that just lost another title shot to, I think it was, I may be getting them mixed up with, I was in Zurich, Thomas Adamek, I'm trying to think what that guy's name is. I don't know if they're the same guy, but anyway, one of those guys in that mix went, and most people thought he won the fight over Diaconu over in Romania. So if they perform to their past fights, I'm going to give Pascal the edge here, because that Pascal looks like he's been getting better and more solid, especially going over to England and fighting as well as he did against Froch. Also on the 20th, now my reports, ESPN is reporting that they are showing this on ESPN Classic from Germany. Vladimir Klitschko taking on Ruslan Chagaev, and ESPN is also reporting It's for Klitschko's IBF and WBO title, as well the Ring Magazine belt will be awarded to the winner. You know, I don't know why the WBA is not recognizing this fight, because after all, the fact that, you know, Valuev lost to Holyfield hands down for that interim nonsense. Chagaev, yes, owes Valuev a fight. That whole thing with Finland, you know, I guess in Germany, certain levels of hepatitis B will allow you to, you know, they'll allow you to perform. In any event, I'm going with Klitschko here. It's probably going to look a lot like the Ibragimov fight, and it's going to be bad. Monterrey, Mexico, that same day, Edgar Sosa making, I don't know what title defense this is, against Carlos Milo in Monterrey, Mexico. No TV here in the United States. Floyd Mayweather, Juan Manuel Marquez off. That's going to be it, folks. Thanks. Bye.